Against doctor's orders, here we are. Sick, no voice. That's a lie, man. I got a little bit of a voice. It's just going to sound a little distorted tonight, but we can't miss this show. It can't be not jam-packed. There's some double negatives in there, but it's not nearly as negative as losing your job, which Hugh Freeze has done today. It brings me no joy, but we got to talk about it. It is a full reaction show. We're jam-packed high atop a dark downtown Nashville, Tennessee. Why? Well, because this country still hasn't gotten its act together about standard savings time and daylight savings time. And everybody this side of Danny Cannell understands it shouldn't be dark at 4:48 p.m. outside my window here. But yet here we are. And here we are after week 10. Got full reaction on the show tonight. As I said, and I know some of you have been at church today, or you've been at potlucks, or you've been at grandma's house, and you don't know what I'm about to tell you, which is Hugh Freeze has been fired at Auburn. So 26 days ago, I led this show by saying we were about to punt the ant bed, as Meemaw would say. And if you've ever punted an ant bed, you know what I mean. If you haven't, you don't have to try it. Just imagine it. Ants scurry all over the place. It gets crazy. It's a little chaotic. Well, since I said that, what have we had, Jesse? We had Arkansas come open. We had Penn State come open. Now we've got Auburn coming open. LSU's come open. And I would like to take this Sunday evening, November 2nd, and suggest to you it's not done. Coaching Carousel Madness, not done. I have to update my playoff predictions just a little bit tonight. I think it's only fair that I get a 3.0 shot at the playoff predictions because the playoff rankings will come out Tuesday night. So we'll do that. We'll reveal where we're headed for the tour this week. We got a jam-packed show. Listen. That's a heavy pack of papers. They're watching us in Santa Monica, California, Opelika, Alabama, Barcelona, Spain, Rogers, Arkansas, wherever you're watching. Hey, all seriousness, I know we joke a lot. We really, really appreciate you letting us do this because this is our job. It's really fun. And I wanted to let you know, all I ever ask is, well, don't blame me for anything. That's the first thing. But the second thing, and more realistically, is if you just subscribe to the channel, that's all we ever need you to do. And if you're on YouTube, you check and see. We're getting very close to 500,000 subs. We want to be there by Thanksgiving. Not that we wouldn't be thankful either way. But I appreciate you guys who already have. If you think you have, just check and make sure. We got a ton coming at you in November. College football is all we do here. Okay, so our diehards, our long-timers, you've been subscribed. I appreciate it. If you haven't, nothing changes for you. It doesn't sign you up for anything. There's no catch. It just helps us in the old algorithm. So we appreciate it in advance. Let's dive in. I'm going to clear the throat about 30 times in the show tonight, but that's only so I can keep talking, which may or may not be a good thing, but like this right here, that's how you know we mean business. Hugh Freeze was fired at Auburn today. Buyout a little bit north of $15 million. This is not a surprise to anyone who's watching college football. It's not a surprise to anyone who's watched Auburn this year. 15-19 over 3 seasons, 6-16 in SEC play, and of course 1-5 in SEC play this year. Not getting blown out. In fact, you could make the argument, and some would, that officiating cost them the Oklahoma game. You can make the argument, and some would, that maybe officiating cost them the Georgia game. They lost the games. If you've watched them this year, if you watched them last night, God bless you. There were other options on. Now, because I am a sick individual, I watched nearly every snap of Kentucky-Auburn. We got back from the SMU game in time for this game to start, and so I watched it wire to wire because we got to support Kublik. Kublik, the semi-rare color commentator booth spot last night, wasn't even on the field. And what a thing for a former Auburn Tiger himself to witness from the 50-yard line. So I watched it. Oh, it was ugly. It was bad. Jackson Arnold doesn't start the game. Then he comes off the bench. Then he gets re-benched. That was basically a microcosm of the Hugh Freeze era at Auburn. There will be thousands and thousands of words written about what went wrong. Why didn't it pan out? Why did Hugh Freeze fail at Auburn? And you just boil it down to 4 of them. Never figured out quarterback. That's it. That's it. There's not really a whole lot of overthinking that has to go on here. Now, with Brian Kelly at LSU, guys, there were layers to that. And I'm not saying, actually, I am saying it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty fundamental with Hugh Freeze. You know, when he first got there, when they first made the move to hire him, there were a lot of people saying, oh, does he deserve a second chance? Because he had run afoul of all kind of bylaws, both ethical and SEC, when he was at Ole Miss, and then he went to Liberty and he paid his dues and he worked his way back up. Does he deserve the right to come back? Is it a big risk? And, you know, all the reasons, all the bullet points for why it was risky, I kind of laughed at those at the time. Because I thought, man, the risk here is, does the offense still work? He's not going to get in trouble off the field anymore. This dude's getting a second chance that most people thought he'd never get. That's not going to be the issue. The issue is going to be whether you should really be bankrolling your entire future behind a guy whose resume's biggest bullet points were, I beat Saban a couple of times. Now, if you had doubts about that, okay. But the doubts about, you know, all the extracurricular stuff, I never really thought that was much of a risk. The risk, as it turns out, was on-field related. And the risk, as it turns out, was, is he going to figure out quarterback? It wasn't even the offense. I think a lot of people are going to look and say, oh, Hugh Freeze's offense didn't work anymore. Now, look, there may be layers of truth to that, too. Do we really even know? I mean, really, think about the 3 years here. Do we really even know if his offense would have worked? I can tell you one thing we know. It doesn't work if you don't have the right quarterback, which, shockingly, we have learned about a lot of offenses around college football. It doesn't tend to work if you don't have the right quarterback. You look at the NIL market, you look at the recruiting market, you look at a lot of the big dollar figures that teams are paying quarterbacks. And I know it rubs some of you the wrong way. And to those of you who feel that way, I would just advise you not to pay attention to what the players get paid. Trust me, life's a lot easier that way. But if you ever wonder why those quarterbacks get paid what they do, check out what happens when you don't have one. Ask Hugh Freeze. Ask Auburn, who's now going to have to pay tens of millions of dollars in buyout money and then hiring a new staff to make up for not paying $2 or $3 million for the right quarterback. Which reminds me, no, of course Jackson Arnold didn't work out for Hugh Freeze. But what was crazy is they went through last cycle and they didn't really spend on quarterback because they were saving up to spend in this cycle. And, you know, on the surface, I thought the plan kind of made sense. We went over that at the time. Like, they weren't going to make much noise in year 2 anyway. Why invest in a big-time quarterback and create a false bubble of expectation? Wait one more year. So that logic I was on board with. Problem was, they got to this cycle, and the quarterback market was what it was, but it was not void of options. I will never listen to that because I'm not going to turn on an Indiana game and watch Fernando Mendoza doing what he's doing and think, oh, Auburn couldn't have paid and gotten that kid. I'm not going to watch Steve Angeli even doing what he was doing at Syracuse before injury and say, oh, Auburn never could have made a run at that kid. They made a run at the wrong one. That's what they did, and it cost Hugh Freeze his job. So, look, maybe his offense wouldn't have worked out. Maybe there was too much stock put in a couple of wins over Nick Saban 10 years ago. Totally fair. I don't even know that it's that complicated. Guy just didn't get quarterback figured out. I mean, otherwise, they were a physical team, played good defense, could run the ball. Didn't matter. That just means a lot of close losses. That's all that means. So you could feel this in the spring. You could feel it in the summer. I thought it was very peculiar when he rolled into Atlanta at SEC Media Days, and I don't know what his deal was, actually. He voluntarily just started talking about expectations and started talking about how it should be playoffs. Man, look, if I thought I had the best team in the history of my organization, I wouldn't talk like that. And certainly he couldn't have felt that way. I know that because Hugh Freeze is not dumb. He's forgotten a lot more about football than I'll ever know. But even I was picking up from around the program a lot of people that were saying, yeah, we're not in love with where we're at right now. And that doesn't always mean the end of the world because you're not what you're going to be coming out of spring. Kirby Smart presents every post-spring the idea that his team could go 6-6 here. It could be bad. So, you know, it's not the end of the world, but there were warning signs. There were red flags around Auburn post-spring. Going into summer, same thing. Coming out of summer, going into fall camp, right before that media days, just the buzz was not great. So, look, they won that Baylor game, which sort of prolonged the inevitable. I thought it was a big deal they won the Baylor game. But so the warning signs were there. It's not a shock, none of that. I think some of the criticisms are kind of lame. That's just me. I know if you're losing games, you can't be having regular tea times. You can't have a social life. You can't be perceived to be doing anything other than grinding away 20 hours at the desk. I get all that. They get paid a lot of money. It's fair. I don't even say don't criticize. That's fine. All I'm saying is there's some guys that are about to take their teams to the playoffs that enjoy a fair amount of activities outside the office, guys. It's not that he didn't figure out quarterback. If he had Ty Simpson playing for him or had Dante Moore down there playing for him and they did what they're doing, nobody would have cared what he was doing on Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. It wouldn't have mattered. He didn't get quarterback figured out. Hugh Freeze worked plenty hard enough, so I don't buy that. I don't buy that he didn't care. In fairness, most people aren't saying that. You know, a few on the fringe may say it. But a lot of the criticisms, it comes with the territory. I get it. I think he gets it. But he didn't win because he didn't have quarterback figured out. So anything above and beyond that is just kind of people wanting to dunk on someone because he's on his way out. There was zero scandal. I mean, major scandal. I'm not presenting Hugh Freeze as a choir boy or anything like that, but remember what the history here is and remember what the risks were. Oh, man, if we bring him back in, think about the risk we're running. There was none of that. The risk was not figuring out quarterback. Okay, now that we've belabored that point, where's Auburn going to go here? I got a big concern with the Auburn coaching search. So Pete Nakos put out the hot board today. And Pete has John Summerall on there. See that second name? Got Jimbo Fisher on there. And as you laugh about Jimbo Fisher being listed, I'm going to tell you don't laugh. I'll come back to that in a second. He's got James Franklin, Brent Key, Clark Lee, Eli Drinkwitz, Kenny Dillingham. I don't think Ryan Silverfield or Alex Golish would factor into this search, at least until they missed on several other candidates. Let me put it that way. So, first thing I hope Auburn doesn't do is go down the Jimbo Fisher road. Got nothing against Jimbo Fisher. I know some of you look at that name and you kind of laugh. Oh, look, what's Nakos doing? He's putting Jimbo Fisher's name on that list because there is a pretty big push behind certain scenes to get Jimbo Fisher back into the coaching world. And what you need to ask yourself is not, do I think Jimbo Fisher would work out at Auburn? Oh, no, it wouldn't be a good hire. Of course it wouldn't. But I'm not a big money donor at Auburn. So before you just laugh that off, you need to make sure all your big money donors think it's also a laughable notion. Because if they don't think it's a laughable notion, then it has some legitimacy. And all I'm saying is you might want to kick the tires around there and make sure everyone's on the same page that Jimbo Fisher's not an option here, right? Right? Okay. Because you need to get all head nods to the yes. Yes, correct. He's not an option here. Let's just make sure of that. And then the other thing that I'm concerned about is the guy who makes perfect sense for this job is John Summerall. Why is that concerning, Josh? It's concerning to me because everyone is saying it. This is one of those instances, pretty rare, where the overwhelming sentiment, I think, is the proper sentiment, which you would think is a good thing. But in coaching searches sometimes, it's not a good thing. Because sometimes athletic directors want to view themselves as mavericks. They want to view themselves as having ideas unique unto themselves. And sometimes, you can probably relate to this in your own life. When it's time for you to make a big decision, if everyone else is telling you which decision you should make, you go the other way just to spite the clapping seals out there. And so right now, we got the athletic director down there. We got John Cohen looking around. Maybe he's looking around. And if he is, he's everybody's, John Summerall, Does that make him more or less likely to view John Summerall as the favorite? Now, Summerall, I think, would kill it here in due time. I also want to remind everyone, I think we are looking in the rearview mirror at what it used to be like to hire a head coach and not in the windshield. In the windshield, none of the proven commodities are going to be on the move. By proven commodities, I mean top of the list, which are like Ryan Day, Kirby Smart. Like those guys, of course, are not moving. But even beyond that, you got multiple jobs that probably the market views as higher quality than yours. So, your A-listers are probably not moving. Now, it doesn't matter as long as you land a guy that you think is going to be an A-lister. That's all that matters. But you need to bake in the idea that a guy can professionally develop on your dime. What that looks like is what Oregon did with Dan Lanning. Josh, are you saying Lanning's available? No, that's not what I said. I said pay attention to what Oregon did with Lanning. They took a little bit of a risk there. Dan had never been a head coach before, but they believed in him. And so they went and got him, and they invested in him. Now the trade there is if you don't go get an established P4 winner, you pay a little bit less on the front end. They're thankful to just have the job, and they know they'll prove themselves, and you think they'll prove themselves. And as they do, then you tear up the old contract, write a new one. The beauty of that is you only pay bigger money when they win. That's part one. Part two is you got to bite the bullet and understand not everyone's a finished product. Not everyone's going to come to you ready to win a championship. Dan Lanning didn't come to Oregon immediately ready. Did you see him against Kalen DeBoer first few times he faced him? Did you see Dan Lanning in the playoff last year in the first round? He's learning on the job. But Oregon's invested in him for the long term, and so they'll reap the rewards for a long time. And they'll be in the hunt most every year. Everyone should be willing to do that now and moving forward. Everyone should be willing to do that. Auburn should be willing to do that. Now, Summerall's already a head coach, but my point remains. Like, if anyone looks at that guy and thinks, oh, he's just a G5 head coach. And what? What does that mean? Does he have the qualities and characteristics that it takes to be the head man at Auburn, or doesn't he? How else is he going to get the experience? So the only thing that concerns me there is everybody is saying his name, and I wish they weren't. It's actually counterintuitive right now for the purposes of Auburn hiring the guy they should hire. Not that he's not the only qualified candidate on that list. There are certain other names that this is no slam dunk, guys. There are certain other names there that are going to get some major traction with that job. We'll talk about that in the coming days. Throat clear number one. You know, we were in Dallas yesterday, had a fun time. Went to the SMU game, which I'll talk about in great detail a little bit later on. But Quick Trip fueled us all the way there, all the way back, fueling the Fall Don't Lie tour. Had a number of SMU staffers actually refer to the tour by its name. That's refreshing. And so we were there yesterday, and even on the flight home, we're kind of wondering, where are we going this next week? Now, I had it narrowed down to 2 candidates, but look, I went somewhere in the spring, and I promised a certain someone that if they took care of business, there was a date on the calendar that I would come and visit them, and I would be at their game, and we would bring the yet-to-be-named tour to their campus. That team was Texas Tech, and Texas Tech took care of business in the aforementioned game against Kansas State last night. And so Joey McGuire did his job, and Brigham Young has more than done their job. So we're going to fulfill our end of the bargain. We are headed to Lubbock, Texas this Saturday. Fall Don't Lie tour will be on the sideline for BYU versus Texas Tech. It will be my first game I've ever seen at Texas Tech. We were there in spring. The speaker series went out there. Joey McGuire joined us, but never been to a game there. The drought is over. Now, actually, in West Texas, it's not going to rain a drop all week. I looked at the forecast. But as far as our visit drought for a game, it's over. It could be, scratch that, it will be an electric atmosphere. As atmospheres in Lubbock, Texas go, I'm excited for the world to see that place. I think the world, the college football public, has seen bits and pieces, little snippets of Texas Tech this year. And they've watched them climb up the rankings. But really, how many of you have sat down and watched a full 4 quarters of Texas Tech? It's entertaining. Very multiple team, very dynamic team. And that's a word I'm using a little bit this year, but only to describe a few teams. Texas Tech's one of them. Very impressive win yesterday. We'll talk about that later. So, looking forward to that. Next up, we got a lot to go. Got a lot to talk about. Oklahoma just flat out went to Neyland and won last night. 33-27, they beat Tennessee. I would give this game 3.5 Chali. It was a classic, what we would call a bad luck first half. That is derived from bad luck stats, which are the opposite of padlock stats. Bad luck stats are the really, really misleading stats that if you saw nothing more than the box score, you'd never be able to guess who won the game. This first half, bad luck half. There was a team that had a 255 to 99 yardage edge, a 17-5 first down edge. That's right, kids. Yeah, that's right. 17 first downs in the first half. I'm not done. 211 to 44 passing yardage edge, 49 to 25 plays run edge, and that team trailed 16-10 at the half. That team was the Tennessee Volunteers. 3 first half turnovers, 2 inside the Oklahoma 40, 1 led to a score. It was tough. It was so bad, I had Tennessee fans hitting me up at halftime, begging me not to make them the Sarah McLachlan special, and they didn't even know what the second half was going to bring yet. That's how bad it was. But this right here is what teams do. Teams, good teams do. See, we thought going into this game that one of these quarterbacks was probably going to have to win it. And I didn't love Oklahoma in the spot because I didn't think Mateer was playing the kind of ball that made him capable of going in here and winning this game. And that's even with Tennessee's defensive limitations. But he didn't need to. He was 19 of 29, had 159 yards through the air. He threw a pick. Now, he did have 80 yards on the ground and did score a touchdown, but he didn't light the world on fire here. I'll tell you what Oklahoma did get. For the second week in a row, they got a 100-yard rusher in Xavier Robinson, 16 for 115. Now, that was a big deal. 7.2 yards per attempt. It was a big deal because you're used to guys in college football fading during the season. We see that all the time, right? We see guys that shine in September, but then they get banged up October, and by November, you're like, oh, man, if we only still had so-and-so. Oh, man, if so-and-so would have only been able to play a full year. Well, much more seldom, but sometimes there are guys who aren't ready to go early in the year. Sometimes they're rehabbing from surgery, and you're going to get them back in like October. Sometimes they just flat out aren't in shape at the beginning of the year. Sometimes they missed spring ball for whatever reason. Well, bottom line is don't discount guys just because they're not lighting the world on fire in September. And I guarantee you much of you, like me, are watching Xavier Robinson knowing full well Oklahoma has struggled to run the ball this year. And you're going, where's he been all year? That coaching staff isn't a bunch of idiots. They've had reasons why they have and haven't played who they have and haven't played. But what's important is he played last night. And he was a key part of winning this game. It felt like, also on the Tennessee side, this game felt like the first game where my fears for Joey Aguilar were fully realized, because the fear of bringing him in so late was he was very turnover prone. In his last year at App State, he had 5 games with multiple interceptions. So that was kind of the MO on him. Now, the hope was, Heupel's system, man, it'll open the guys up for him. It'll make the reads. It'll make the checks. All he's got to do is just deliver an accurate ball. And so don't worry. We'll just wash all that away. Well, this was not that game. If that's how you thought it was going to go, this was not that game. And it was a terrible situational game for Tennessee as well. It's not a game they deserve to win. It was a tough watch because, like, you come out of that first half, and remember a week ago, we saw A&M dominate the first half box score, but they still trailed LSU. But it just felt like a matter of time before the dam broke. This game felt a little different to me. I felt like Tennessee left a lot on the field in the first half, and they may end up paying for it with a loss, and that's what happened. However, what I didn't expect is to look at my phone. I got 2 texts last night from people whose opinions I kind of respect, except for last night when these are Tennessee fans, mind you, and they were like, is it time to have the conversation about Heupel? I said, I'd be happy to have a conversation about Josh. What do you want to know? And they're like, no, I mean, we're not saying we should fire him, but. Well, it sounds like you're saying you should fire him, even though you followed it with a but. It sounds like that's where you're trying to go with this. And they're like, well, no, it's just something has to change here. All right. On the ladder of criticism in coaching, let's just say we have 10 rungs. The 10th rung is fire this guy. You need to specify when you say changes need to be made. Are you talking about, like, are you on rung 3 critically or 4 or 5, because there's a long way to go between this guy needs to make some changes versus we need to fire this guy. And sometimes we just shave off all the rungs 4 through 9. It's just either you're rung 3 or rung 10. It's kind of the way that was presented to me last night. So, hey, if you want to say he needs to make some changes on his staff, okay. I'm just going to ask, because I do possess the ability and the right to zoom out to 50,000 feet here for a second. Does anyone care to go back to July with me? Does anyone care to just recap what they thought about Tennessee coming into the season? Because we had a great big fight on this show right into this microphone where I looked and I had the audacity to say, hey, this dude, Josh Heupel, they're losing a lot off a good defense last year. This dude, Josh Heupel, just had his quarterback yanked from his roster after spring and went and got a guy who's been fairly turnover prone in his career. Oh, this guy's also got some big-time defensive injuries for the guys who are still there coming into the year. 8-4. I feel like 8-4 is about right. Oh, man, they rained criticism down on me. Well, here's the problem. The people, I'm not hating on you. You ought to root for your team to win every game. What I'm saying is some people who had, I think, unrealistic expectations for this team are now getting mad at the team for not fulfilling on their unrealistic expectations. Tennessee's right in line to do what I thought they were going to do. I had them as an 8-4 team. I thought it was a transition year. I called it a bridge year. I think they'll be right back in the mix next year. I mean, hot seat and Josh Heupel shouldn't even be in the same sentence unless he is commenting on the hot seat about someone else, is how I view that. So Tennessee's right where I expected. Now, they got New Mexico State, they go to Florida, they got Vandy left. Where are they going to finish? What are they, a 3-loss team? Yeah, they're a 3-loss team right now. They run the table. They can do better than I thought they'd do. I think they may lose one more game, either the Florida game or the Vandy game. I would advise you guys to make it the Florida game. Don't be losing to Vandy and Neyland last weekend of the season. Hey, as for Oklahoma now, all of a sudden, we got to repopularize the notion that Oklahoma has everything in front of them. Remember, let me take you to the preseason again. Do you remember the conversation about 3-loss SEC teams making the playoff? Some of you scoffed at it. Many of you scoffed at it. But most of you agreed, begrudgingly, if there's a 3-loss team from the SEC that makes the playoff, probably going to be Florida or Oklahoma. Well, mathematically, I'm told Florida is incapable of being a 3-loss team because they've already lost more than 3. Oklahoma is 7-2, and they got 3 games left. They're going to go to Bama, off a bye, by the way. They're going to go to Bama. They've got Missouri at home, injured quarterback, and they got LSU, decapitated head coach. So what happens if OU loses one more game? They lose the Bama game. They're 9-3. Where are they going to be? Where are they going to? Don't just be dismissing the notion because you hate SEC teams. Tell me, are there going to be 12 resumes better than that? I'm asking rhetorically because I don't know yet. How do you think it's going to play out? Much less if they win all their remaining games, then they're a shoo-in. But I'm wondering if they lose one of those games. Oklahoma, sort of left for dead after the Ole Miss loss. I thought they'd lose this past weekend, so I include myself in that. Interesting times. Interesting times. Let's move on. I'm going to take a chug of water right quick. No one objected in the studio, so I'm going to take a chug of water. Turn the logo around. Straight from the plastic carton. So no BPH in that. Definitely not. No, that's high quality plastic. SMU beat Miami in overtime yesterday. This line plummeted as the game got closer. I was sitting in the press box yesterday because it was raining. And I did go down to the field. I ended up braving the rain. I don't want any criticism. But I was sitting next to Chris Vanini, and I said, do you see this line? He said, what? It's like 10.5, right? I said, no. It was about 20 minutes ago. It's down to 8.5 now. Gasps everywhere. As Lee Corso used to say, somebody knew something. We got there because of Quick Trip. Quick Trip fueled us there. And they present this entire game recap, by the way. I give this game 4.5 Chalai. It really delivered. We were there. We were on the field. And we were part of another field storming. And, I've got the iJosh with me, so I'm capturing footage. Prez was standing in the end zone. This is actually from his phone, the iPrez, if you will. He was capturing footage. Unbelievable times. Sold out game there. Gerald Ford Stadium. It rained in the first half. There's not a cloud in the sky by the time the game ends. And there's Rhett Lashley. What an emotional scene. They just lost to Wake last week. This is Miami's 6th loss as a double-digit favorite under Mario Cristobal. This is SMU's first home win versus a top 10 team since 1974. They had Craig James there yesterday. They had Eric Dickerson there yesterday. The last time they won at home versus a top 10 team was several years before those guys played at SMU, before Ron Meyer even got there. Just a pre-Pony excess. Pre-Pony excess. Amazing. Look, we always bank on getting a memorable experience and a memorable trip. We got more than we bargained for at SMU yesterday. So it begs the question, doesn't it? How did this team lose to Wake Forest? It'll make a better soundbite if I just re-rack the balls there, Bradley. How did this team lose to Wake Forest? Probably the question on a lot of people's minds as they watched them win this game. Well, you got to understand what a college football team is. It is 12 versions of a program. And sometimes there's wild variance week to week, doubly especially in college football. And so I would suggest to you, what if the Wake Forest result triggered this result? We see that all the time. They went, I talked to Rhett Lashley last week after the Wake Forest game, and he was confident of two things. One, that's one of the worst offensive performances we've ever had anytime I've been a coach anywhere. Number two, adamant, we will bounce back. We will bounce back from it. Both were true. And they bounced back yesterday. They didn't light the world on fire offensively, but you see they didn't need to. They played a complementary enough style where they got the job done. Kevin Jennings, the quarterback there, I can't speak highly enough of him. Man, so his numbers alone, okay, if I give no caveat here, I think he was 29 of 44 for 365 yards. He had a passing touchdown. He had a rushing touchdown. He had no run game to lean on. And so not only that, but there's a period of this game where he gets hurt and can't put any weight on the foot. So he hops off the field. They were already banged up, man. They had a lot of guys that were questionable. Some of them went. Some of them weren't able to go. They're just dealing with injuries like a lot of teams are. But Jennings goes down, and I watched him leave the field, and I just watched him. The plays are still going on. I'm just watching him. Helmet gets thrown over there. He's laid out on the bench. I watched him a couple of times try and walk on the foot. No cameras are on him. This is not like performative. It legit can't walk on it. Then he could put a little weight on it and tried to run, and it looked like a three-legged horse trying to run. Like it was tough. It did not look like mobility was going to be any kind of factor in his game, even if he was able to get back out there. I think he missed like 2 plays. I understand these are very, very high-level athletes. I'm just saying that's a dude who was not going to miss plays. He was not going to miss the rest of the game. And he was dealing with something, with a serious something. And he gets back out there, and they go on and win the game. And SMU's defense, we talked about them being kind of all or nothing. The one thing they will do is they'll blitz and they'll get after you. And they went all or nothing, and Miami never took the game. SMU actually had a 375 to 264 passing yards advantage on them. So it was a great day for SMU. I'll talk about the experience more in a second. This was an embarrassment from Miami. There's no other way to put that. They had 9 trips into SMU territory, and they totaled 20 points. They had 3 explosive passes the whole day. And this is an SMU secondary that you should be able to go to work on. That's a skill set at Miami that should be able to go to work on SMU secondary, and they didn't. They were heavily penalized. They appeared very ill-equipped and ill-prepared to play the game. 12 penalties for 96 yards. Now, look, this wasn't the best officiating job I've ever seen, and I think Miami probably ended up on the wrong side of some of this stuff. But, man, like I told Prez coming home, I told Jesse earlier today, I hope I hear any Miami fans try and blame officiating for this. And I haven't, by the way. To their credit, I haven't. I've heard them complain about it. I've seen Miami fans stop well short of criticizing officials as it relates to the reason they lost the game. I don't know how it seems to you, but it seems to me, just standing there watching Miami, they use the approach offensively that other teams should be using against them. So Miami's got an athletic advantage on most teams they play. When you have an athletic advantage on teams that you play, what you want to do offensively is run as many plays as you can. Expand the game, extend the game. The more drives, the more plays, the more reps your better athletes have against relatively inferior athletes, and therefore you actually reduce variance. When the game gets contracted, when your possessions get limited, that's when there's a lot higher variance in outcome, and that's what Miami's offensive game plan actually yields. It's the craziest thing to watch. They play to condense the game, and then the game gets condensed, and they're trying to be methodical, and they're trying to be physical, and it's not working, and there's no secondary pitch. It's the craziest thing to watch. It is the craziest thing to watch, and yet it happened time after time after time, and eventually you realize this isn't going to change, and you get the result you got there. And now you are on the precipice, you're on the brink of the second year in a row wasting a very, very good, talented roster, not even making the playoffs, not even making your conference championship game. That speaks to everybody. That starts with Mario and goes all the way down. But it really starts and ends with Mario because he's responsible for everything underneath him. And I don't really know what kind of adjustment you're going to make in season. And candidly, at this point, I don't know what adjustment you could make that would matter. I don't know that you control your own fate anymore. And I don't know what the math is on that, but are they done losing? I don't know that they're done losing. Their odds to win the ACC championship are done. So that's going to be a big story to follow. And they got 4 more games, and the last 2 are on the road, and all 4 of those teams can give them problems. They're favored by 28 against Syracuse, and that's all well and good if your team's still checked in. We got to make sure the team's still checked in first and foremost. There's no guarantee of that. There was a lot of unrest on that sideline. There should be. There was a lot of unrest between staff members. There should be. We'll see what that yields. But that's a story to keep a close eye on. And you've got to evaluate the entirety of your organization every year. Even when Ryan Day evaluated his organization after this last season. So it doesn't matter if you're terrible, you're great, you're evaling. Sometimes you look and say, I like everything. And other times you look and say, I hate everything. What is Mario Cristobal's eval of his organization is what I'm interested in. Like last year, it was so easy a blind guy could have seen it. You got to make a change at defensive coordinator. They did. Results have been better. But now offensively, they should be more than they are. Program-wise, they should be more than they are. I said when I went and watched them in person against Florida State earlier this year, I put out a tweet. I said, Miami looks different in person than any other team I've seen. And a lot of foolish people have tried to throw that back at me. Oh, how do you feel about that now? The exact same way as when I said it. I've watched all these teams in person. That team physically looks insane. It's an indictment on them that they're not winning with those guys. It doesn't make those guys not look that way. What I said had nothing to do with quality of team. I wasn't predicting them to go 12-0. I was saying, boy, on the hoof, those guys look incredible. Well, looks don't win games, which is ironically what some people have been saying back to me. Yeah, I know looks don't win games. Obviously, they don't. There's only one ACC loss on SMU's resume right now. They're a 3-loss team. Only one of those is in conference. They got Boston College this week. That's not easy. They got a bye. They got Louisville. They go to Cal. That'll be Louisville's 6th straight game, by the way, when they play a rested SMU. So keep that in mind. So we're on the field yesterday. Field gets stormed, and I'm standing there with some SMU staffers, and we're standing next to the tunnel. So they say, just come with us. So we go up the tunnel. We go into the locker room, and post-game locker rooms after you've won a big game, like a dramatic game, there's nothing like that. Nothing like it. And a lot of times I'm in there And I'm going to be respectful, like I'm not going to record. But they're okay with you recording in the SMU locker room. Look at that. Shooter McGavin in the middle of it all. I'm standing next to Savannah. I'm just watching Rhett Lashley. I'm watching all these guys. I'm just soaking it all in. Savannah, like this could only happen in a college football game. She just says, oh, hey, there's Shooter McGavin. I say, excuse me? Yeah, Christopher McDonald down there. There's Shooter McGavin. What? Why is Shooter McGavin in the locker room? You know what? Don't even answer the question. Of course Shooter McGavin's in the locker room. So it was a great scene. That program needed it bad. They needed it really bad. First-class treatment. Loved our time there. Second half was beautiful weather-wise. Look at that. You'd never guess it was raining there an hour and a half before. So first game at SMU, very successful. Question becomes, what is the NID? Oh, by the way, George W. Bush also there. Just hanging out. And the pony. The big question is, and this is up to Rhett Lashley and those guys to answer, what is the NIL package for us to attend games? Because if that happens, every time we attend an SMU game, and it has every time we've been there once, what is that worth? Think about how that stimulates the economy, how it stimulates the student body, how it stimulates recruiting. I don't know. I should have used the word generate because Flex Power is next up in the show. We run on Flex Power. What I would love is a Flex Power generator that powered the voice, so it didn't fade like mine is right now. Still working on that technology. Elon's working on flying cars. Flex Power working on vocal cord generators. That's not official. Legally, I have to say that. That's not official. But you go to myflexpower.com/Josh Pate right now, you can get some really quiet, really powerful generators. And I know good and well a lot of you go tailgating every week. You need this. I know good and well a lot of you are gearing up for all sorts of recreational activities in and around the holiday season, and I know you need them as well. And our research tells us that every one of you has had the power go out on you before. So next time it happens, be prepared with Flex Power. Powerful cough there. We continue. We just soldier right on through here. Georgia won another game that everyone thought they were going to lose at some point yesterday. 24-20 was the final. Got to give it for Chalai. Georgia's on pace to play as many 4+ Chalai games in a year as they ever have. Normally, Georgia games are boring. Not this year. Excitement all around. Georgia, Kirby Smart and Georgia have taught you this lesson 1,000 times. Yesterday was just 1,001. What is the lesson? It's getting old now. I keep saying the same thing after every Georgia game. The lesson is you got to cut the head off the snake. Until you've cut the head off the snake, it doesn't matter if it's wounded. That doesn't matter. If you've ever killed a snake, you know how to kill it. Cut its head off. Ball game. And everyone keeps wounding Georgia, but they don't cut the head off. And then Georgia bites you in the fourth quarter, and you're sitting there at Neyland Stadium saying, how did they win this game? And you're sitting there down at Auburn saying, how did they win this game? And you're sitting down there in Jacksonville yesterday saying, how? Well, competitive character is how. And being comfortable, being uncomfortable is how. Kirby Smart has a really, really good understanding of the team he has here. And that team he has is not dominant. Some of the Georgia teams he's had, there are 2 or 3 or 7 dominant things they can do in a football game. This Georgia team doesn't have all that. It's not a terrible team. It's just not a historically great Georgia team. That doesn't mean you can't win games. How do you have to win them? You got to win them in the margins. So, like you look at a Georgia box score, where are the margins? Here's one of them. Third down, Georgia was 7 of 15. Florida was 2 of 11. Decent edge. They got that field goal right before the half. I thought that was a big deal. That 3rd and 7 they converted late in the game, huge deal. 4 explosive passes for Georgia, 3 of them for Florida. A little bit of a margin there. 20-16 edge on first downs, little bit of a margin there. What I'm saying is there aren't many paper popper stats on this stat sheet here. There aren't any at all, actually. Georgia's not dominating games. They're winning them. See, whether you win 54-20 or 24-20, they give you a win. Now, For those of you who had a Georgia -7.5 ticket, you know that taking a knee at the 1 yard line at the end costs you, but it doesn't cost Georgia the win. And prayers up for anyone who suffered there. We've all been there. Now, I would wish it on my worst enemy, but on people I just dislike, I wouldn't even wish that on them. That's a terrible, terrible thing. They are comfortable being uncomfortable. Georgia, not the losing bettors. They're comfortable being uncomfortable. It is the biggest compliment that I find myself frequently giving to Kirby's teams because, you always have this vision in your mind of, well, if games go the way they're supposed to, Georgia will just win. And that's never the way they prepare. They're always ready. They're ready for a shootout. They're ready for a street fight. They tend to do well in those moments. I felt like this game got discussed under false pretenses, by the way. Because Georgia is like right there in the top 10 or top 5 or whatever they're ranked, and Florida's unranked, and their season's gone off the rails, and they fired their coach. So that creates this perception in your mind that there's this big gap between these teams. There aren't. There's not a big gap between these teams on one given Saturday. The big question for Florida was, are they going to be checked in? I doubted whether they would be. That's why I thought Georgia minus the points may be the right side. We didn't bet it, but that's the way I kind of slightly would have leaned. And look, they took a knee at the 1 yard line at the end, so probably the right side. But point being, Florida was checked in. Florida hadn't mailed anything in. So if you told me nothing more than that on Friday, I would have expected a dogfight in this game because Florida's plenty athletic enough to beat Georgia. So that's not the way the game got discussed. We were on the way back from Dallas yesterday, and I was looking at the way people were talking about the game as it rolled from third quarter into fourth quarter. People were talking about it like this massive upset was brewing. Like Georgia was a 27-point favorite instead of a 7-point favorite. This wasn't going to be a massive upset. There was nothing shocking about Florida hanging with them. Look, athletically, Florida had some edges on that field against Georgia yesterday. That wasn't going to be a shock. Georgia's the better team. That's why they're favored by a touchdown, but not 3 touchdowns. We talked about that last week. We said, hey, in the Big Ten, Ohio State's favored by 3 touchdowns over Penn State. Georgia's favored by 1 touchdown over Florida. Now, you can make what you will of that as it compares the Big Ten to the SEC, but as it relates to this game, this wasn't a surprise. What's Georgia's ceiling right now? Coming out of this game, that's kind of what I think about. They're 7th right now at FanDuel in the title odds. So they keep slipping down the board a little bit because people keep watching them, and they keep seeing, oh, Georgia, they're just kind of good, like it's a crime. Georgia's just, they're okay. But Notre Dame, Oregon, A&M, Alabama, Indiana, Ohio State, all those teams have better odds to win the national title right now than Georgia. I think it's fair to ask, what do they do that is elite? But my follow-up question would be, well, how high is their floor? And I think the answer is it's pretty high. Like the worst you're going to get out of Georgia is a pretty good performance. Ironically, their ceiling may be lower than it's used to being, but the floor is still way up there. They got a young team, far less experience collectively. So, look, it's not an overly dynamic team. But they've got November to hit their stride, whatever that's going to be. And they'll be a tough out, come what may. It's like Texas is going to go in there in a couple of weeks. They got a big letdown spot this week, by the way. Not that they're usually prone to that, but I just want to warn everyone. They go to Mississippi State Saturday. State just got their first conference win under Levy, so it's a letdown spot for them as well. For those of you who are under any kind of false pretense that this is going to be some blowout game, Georgia's favored by 7.5 at Mississippi State. 11 a.m. kickoff, so they got a little lucky with that. But they got Texas coming to Athens the week after. So I'm just throwing a little trip to Starkville in between games against Florida and Texas. Interesting. I will continue to say this because it's the way thus far that I plan on remembering the 2024 Georgia or 2025 Georgia team. It is so obvious Kirby Smart loves that team. He knows it's not his most talented team. The ceiling's not as high. Look at this lineup. They win by 3 at Tennessee after Tennessee misses a game-winning field goal. They got beat by 3 against Bama. They trailed Auburn at the half and looked dead in the water, came from behind to win that one. They beat Ole Miss, even though Ole Miss scored on like their first 6 drives. And then they lost. They won yesterday, close games, just all a bunch of close games. That's the profile of this team this year. But no one's cut the head off the snake yet. No one's knocked them out yet. Bama beat them, but you can lose 1 or 2 games now. So no one's knocked them out yet. Just be interested to see, like, come playoff time, how do they match up? Because that's still a really good roster. How do they match up? Let's roll on. So far, so good, Bradley. The score of the Texas-Vanderbilt game, for those of you who didn't watch it, feels kind of misleading. 34-31 was the final yesterday. So you think, ooh, shootout, wire to wire, down to the wire. Well, let me set the table here. How rarely do we have a 34-31 game that gets 2.5 chali? Well, I'll tell you. The games that are 34-10 entering the fourth quarter and end up being 34-31, those are close games that get 2.5 chali. This is a perfect example, though, of why the model and why any predictive models never fully discount the talent factor. Like Texas, for example. You'll notice that even after Texas loses some games, or Bama in the past, or Georgia in the past, Ohio State in the past, those teams lose several games, but our model still has them power-rated top 10, or Vegas numbers, FanDuel odds still favor them against teams that are ranked higher than them. Why is that? Well, it's because of what talent means. And over the course of history, it's hard to keep talented teams down for an entire year. So yesterday, Texas all of a sudden catches fire offensively. And really, it was playing off of what they did in the Mississippi State game the week before. If this is Arch Manning, Texas could be a problem. If this is Arch Manning, the back part of last week and this week, which we didn't even know he was going to play until later in the week, Texas scored on their first 6 standard drives in this game. Arch was 25 of 33, 328, 3 touchdowns, no picks. That is not a bad Vanderbilt defense, guys. So you remember what I told you earlier, sometimes you got to wait for guys to get healthy to peak in the season. Sometimes guys also developmentally are not all ready to go by week 1. Sometimes guys click during the year. Arch Manning may just be clicking. If he is, Texas is not out of anything yet. They're a 2-loss team, but Texas still has everything in front of them. They had 25 rushes under 100 yards yesterday, too. So they didn't have this great ground game to lean on, but they still owned most of the game until the fourth quarter. And you've got to credit Vanderbilt. I mean, they made a comeback here. Officiating, look, I just got to say, it was very, very suspect in the fourth quarter. I think it aided Vanderbilt's effort to come back. Texas's secondary also greatly aided Vanderbilt's effort to come back. A will to win aided Vanderbilt's effort to come back. But November is a very long month. And it's only the 1st or 2nd of November. But you start to get out into these waters where you've got your playoff fate in your own hands. And it just gets tough. The air is thin. It just gets tough to keep stringing together wins. So now Vandy's 7-2, probably not going to go to Atlanta, but they've still got their playoff fate in their hands. Bottom line is this. They got Auburn and Kentucky at home. They go to Tennessee. They win those 3 games, they're in. So, is there an insurmountable hurdle there? I don't think so. At the same time, is there a gimme there? You may think there is. Like Auburn at home, you may think there is. The line is 7.5 on that game. You don't know how Auburn's going to play under an interim head coach. You just watched Kentucky throw the crowbar into the spokes at Auburn against the head of Auburn. And then you got Tennessee and Neyland at the end of the year. So they're all going to be tough, but they're all winnable. But how much will this fourth quarter matter? That's what I kept thinking about the Texas game. So first thing you want to do in this order, hold on and win the game. They did. Then the game's over, and I started to ask myself, all right, I just saw the Texas secondary get worked back-to-back weeks now. So a flaw has been exposed there. 350-plus passing yards for Vandy. All right, so that's the first thing. That's going to matter down the road. But then the second thing is, if Texas loses one more game. So let's say they go to Georgia and lose, but they beat A&M, top 5 A&M to end the year. And Texas is 9-3. A lot of chaos is happening. So, there's going to be a window. There's going to be a little crack in the door where one of these 9-3 SEC teams can sniff one of those lower seeds. I don't care if you don't like that. I'm just telling you it's going to be a possibility. How will the committee look back on this? Because this ended up being a very close game. And I wonder, if Texas had a 34-10 blowout of a top 10 team right there, boy, that's emphatic. Now, they won the game. So, a win is a win in that case. But if it comes nitpicking time, will the committee look and say, well, that wasn't an overly convincing win? You know how it can be. You can now it could be the committee's looking for a reason to put Texas in, and they say, oh, it doesn't matter. By 50 or by 3, they won the game. Texas is still a dangerous team. If they've gotten a hot quarterback, Texas is still a very dangerous team. Not dangerous, Academy Sports and Outdoors. Safest thing you could do. Thanksgiving coming up, Christmas coming up, the entire shopping paradigm in this country really shifts around this time of year. Academy Sports and Outdoors has you set up. You got fall and winter gear there, fall and winter sporting gear there, camping gear there, all kinds of stuff. Big League Chew there. Academy is a longtime partner of the show. There's a ton of stuff there. Some you would expect, others you wouldn't expect. I just implore you, you know how rarely I use that word, pay them a visit before you go elsewhere. And if you can't get there in person, it's a shame. But if you can't get there in person, academy.com has your hookup. We appreciate them. We roll on. Oh, you know what? I shouldn't just neglect the live chat over here. A lot of you watching. There you go. That was me. I just typed that. If you're watching, thank you so much. Just be aware. We do this. It's free. We do this show. It's college football all year. Appreciate all of you watching. Our numbers are massively up. Look below the video right now where it says subscribe. And if you haven't, just click that button for me. That's all. It's free. It doesn't do anything for you. It just does something for us. And we appreciate you in advance for doing that. 500K by Thanksgiving. Can we do it? 500,000 subs. Can we do it? I think we can. USC beat Nebraska last night, 21-17. Shame for the home team. Shame for Will Compton. Shame for me. Shame for Taylor Lewan. We went three-way money line on this one. Terrible things happened to Nebraska last night. So great things for USC. 2.5 Chalai on this game. Sort of a rock fight, if you want me to be honest with you. Jaden Maiava held under 200 yards, and yet USC wins a Big Ten game on the road anyway. That's a long headline, but it's a big headline. They cleared a mental hurdle here, did USC. Because if you tell me they're going to get poor quarterback numbers and they're still going to win, and they're going to win with defense, and they're going to win running the ball on the road, hello, 2 time zones away, hello, at night, Memorial Stadium, blackout conditions, hello. So how did they do this? Well, their defense held Nebraska to 5 of 12 on third down, 0 of 1 on fourth down. Nebraska, I would call this a paper popper. Nebraska had 8 drives of 25 yards or less. But Josh, Dylan Raiola went down. I know that. I'll get to that in a second. USC also ran the ball. 38 carries over 200 yards, 5.3 per carry. Now, some would call that an ugly game. But, you know, there have been games in the past where Lincoln Riley has scored 40-plus and lost. Fireworks all over the place. You know, people never call those games ugly. But you win a lower-scoring game, and it's ugly. If that's the case, you give me ugly. I'll take the ugly. You guys can take the fireworks. You can take the pinball game. This, I think, is probably as good an indication as anything we've seen this side of the Michigan game that what Lincoln Riley promised last winter about the transformation of the program is really starting to take root. Still a ways to go, but it's starting to take root. That's a really good sign. This is not the kind of game that Lincoln Riley teams have been equipped to win in years past. Just purely on identity And philosophy, they haven't been. So this is a good thing. Now, there wasn't much to say for Nebraska because Dylan Raiola went down in this game. Broken fibula, I believe. He's out for the season. And so TJ Lateef had to come in, and it kind of was what it was at that point. They were up 14-6 when Raiola went down, and they saw it slip away from them. Like I said, tough to watch. Everyone knows I had Nebraska as sort of a wild card-ish playoff team. So that's out now. They got 3 games left. They're all going to be tough with a backup quarterback. They're all going to be tough. Jesse, do you remember off the top of your head the early number for Nebraska at UCLA? No. Okay. Well, I don't either. But they're all going to be tough. But for USC, plus 2.5. Okay, so Nebraska is a short underdog on the road at UCLA. They will be a dog at Penn State. They will, I don't know what the Iowa number will be. Iowa's their own story right now. But USC controls their own destiny. That's the important thing to note. We are now going to be 2 weeks into November, and the University of Southern California controlling their own destiny, at least when it comes to the playoff. So, they're 6-2. Riddle me this. These 4 games left. Northwestern, Iowa, at Oregon, UCLA. USC's record in those 4 games will be what? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, Jesse, the 7th is a Friday, right? That's what he was complaining about. So Lincoln Riley is in a conference where the schedule makes little sense because teams are all over the country. They played a night game at Nebraska. Now they got to come home and get ready for a Friday game. Not the easiest position to be in the world, but that's what the money's for. All those media rights dollars coming your way, that's what the money's for, I guess. Do you think they can go undefeated in November? Do you think they can run that schedule there? The game at Oregon's obviously the one everyone circles, but please, let's not get ourselves under the misguided notion that USC can take anything for granted here. Let's not do that. But this is still a team with a lot to play for. It's still a team that it could be one of those where they're sitting there and all of a sudden it's Selection Sunday and you've got like one or the 10 seed and the 11 seed is open and you're trying to choose from some 3-loss SEC teams, but there's 2-loss USC. Put them in. It could happen. The Big Ten odds to make the playoff, Oregon's minus 430. Of course, Ohio State and Indiana are virtually in. So Oregon's, it's favored, significantly favored right now to make the playoffs. USC's plus 630. So if you think that USC is going to run the table here, I would encourage you to get down on that one now and don't wait. Added takeaways in Week 10. Probably another sip of water. Still going strong. Don't feel the voice cracking quite yet. But you never know. So hang in there. I'm talking to myself, not you. Okay, added takeaways from Week 10. Look, Ohio State, they looked pretty good yesterday. Let's just be real. They had more yards on 4 plays than Penn State had the whole game. All I have is paper popper stats for Ohio State. There's no breakdown. It's just it's all dessert. There's no green beans here. There's no cabbage. It's just all dessert. So Ohio State had more plays or had more yards on 4 plays than Penn State had the whole game. All right. Julian Sayin had more touchdowns than incompletions. That's fun. They outscored Penn State 21-0 in the second half. It is really weird to talk about Ohio State right now. I was trying to figure this out. I was trying to get to the bottom of this today. I keep seeing a whole bunch of people defending Ohio State, but I don't know what the claim is that they're defending against. It seems to have something to do with the SEC, shocker, something to do with specific teams in the SEC, how Ohio State matches up with them, and I keep trying to figure out what's happened. Did someone say Ohio State's not the number 1 team in the country? I don't mean someone with 38 followers and an egg for their profile picture. I mean real people whose opinions you value. Is anyone saying that? Is anyone saying, hey, Ohio State, Georgia, neutral field today, give me Georgia? Are those people out there? If they're out there, that's okay. Maybe they're right. I don't think they are, but maybe they're right. But at least show them to me. Right now, I see like for 100 people who have the solution, I only see like one person presenting the problem. It's the craziest thing in the world. How many people are gatekeeping the obvious number one team in the country right now? And if it's not them, it's Indiana. So the SEC doesn't tie into that at all right now. Even most A&M folks I know and Bama folks I know are not saying they belong above Ohio State. So anyway, that's that. Next up. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. So yesterday, I'm looking at the scoreboard there at Gerald Ford Stadium in Dallas, and I'm looking at the Duke-Clemson game. And the score starts getting up there. And I'm like, wow, that must be a little uncomfortable there at Clemson. Then I saw him take a 45-38 lead late. And I figured, oh, well, they got out of there with one. And then we're walking out of the stadium, and I'm scrolling, trying to get some games pulled up, and like, it says 46-35 here. That can't be right. It was 38. So the touchdown would have tied it up. Wait a second. Did Duke score and go for two and just go for the jugular? Did Clemson really just score 45 at home and lose? And the answer to all of those questions, as it turns out, was yes. And so I got to find my paper. I regret to inform you, I have no other choice. Clemson's got to be the Sarah McLachlan special. This was Clemson's 6th consecutive home loss to a Power 4 team. I don't even understand how that's possible. This place used to be called Death Valley. Used to be called Death Valley. They've lost half a dozen games there in a row to Power 4 teams. They were 62-5 in that spot from 2011 through the middle of last year before this run started. They had been 134-0 when scoring 45 or more. Clemson total losses per year starting in 2019. Tell me if you can spot the trend here. 1 loss, 2 losses, 3 losses, 3 losses, 4 losses, 4 losses, 5 losses. Again, tell me if you can spot the trend. They've got Florida State at Louisville, Furman at South Carolina still to go. They need to win 3 of those 4 to make a bowl. Yes, Dabo Swinney's team in danger of missing a bowl. They play FSU this Saturday. I thought this may be one of the marquee games of the season in July. I called myself possibly taking the tour to this game. It's on ACC Network. They don't even count that in the Nielsen ratings. That's how badly they're trying to hide this game from you. Quote from Dabo Swinney after the game. We'll win more championships. I promise you that. And apparently he's talking about football. So Clemson goes down 46-45 to Duke. We move on. Ole Miss won again. They beat South Carolina 30-14. I don't know if you've noticed, but every other coach whose name has been mentioned in coaching searches has sucked lately, except one. Lane Kiffin just keeps rolling merrily along. Go to Oklahoma, we'll win. Come home against South Carolina, it's not October anymore. We'll win. No problem. Outrushed them 258-50. Got half a dozen sacks, perfect in the red zone. Here they are, 8-1. They've actually got some wiggle room right now. They got Citadel, Florida, and at Mississippi State left. They can afford to lose one of those games and still make the playoff. Lane Kiffin's name is all over the place. Show me a job he's not a candidate for. And somehow, some way, the noise has affected Summerall. It's affected Rule. It's affected Brent Key. It's affected everybody else. And Lane Kiffin headed off to hot yoga in the morning. Show up to work whenever. Just keep winning. Wow. Texas Tech took care of business last night, 43-20 against Kansas State. One team in this game had 5 turnovers. The other had 2. Guess who won? One team had 20 points off turnovers. Good offensive balance here from Texas Tech. They went on the road. This is a tough spot now. Kansas State had won 3 of 4. and barely dropped the other one. Like, they were very, very hot. And Texas Tech took care of them. 249 passing, 187 rushing. On fourth down, they were 2 of 3, and Kansas State was 0 of 4. And that's a paper popper stat. And that leads me to this. We will be there this Saturday. I already revealed this earlier in the show, but I just want to reiterate it because I'm very, very excited about this game. The top 2 teams in the Big 12 right now are Brigham Young and Texas Tech. They play this Saturday, 11 a.m., Lubbock, Texas. The whole world's going to be there. We will be there. Game day is going to be there. Ryan Russillo is rumored to be there. Just to give you an idea, on a scale of 1 to Russillo showing up, how big this game is. We're at a solid 9.75 pending an announcement from him. It's going to be a great day. I'm looking at sunny and 79. Going to be a great day. NC State beat Georgia Tech 48-36 yesterday. And the thing about it is, guys, Haynes King did not have a bad game. He did his thing. 25 of 35 for 408. 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. He added another 103 yards on the ground and 2 more scores. Statistically, he is the team, but you can't count on that because what Haynes King will not do is, to this point, he is not pulling a Travis Hunter. He will not play both ways. And that's unfortunate because NC State had 583 total yards yesterday. I have in my hand their drive chart, but you also have it on the screen. Touchdown, touchdown, punt, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, punt. That's it. That equals 48. And that's not going to be good enough. Somehow, some way, NC State may end up being responsible for wrecking multiple seasons, plural. They're the only ones who have beaten Virginia. They're now the only ones who have beaten Georgia Tech. I have no idea. At least this was a conference game. The one against Virginia wasn't even a conference game. I got you a conference game, though, and I got you a conference game the model nailed. Utah-Cincinnati. Dusty Dvorak and friends on the call last night. You know, when I told you last week, the model actually has Utah as the highest rated team in the Big 12. You know how even as that spread got up to 10.5, and it had everyone puzzled, like, why is Utah this big a favorite? I said, the model thinks it's going to be a blowout. It was a blowout. Model nailed this one. Utah was 4 of 5 in the red zone for 24 points. That is a paper popper. That's all you need to know. Yet they're still on the outside looking in right now in the Big 12 title picture because they lost against Texas Tech and lost against Brigham Young. Those are conference games. And so they got 2 losses right now. Brigham Young is undefeated still. Texas Tech and Cincinnati have 1 loss apiece in conference play. So but there's still some stuff that has to happen for Utah to get in there. But they may end up playing the best ball in November of any team in this conference. So weird times right now. But yeah, good on the model. Good on the model. It nailed that game. Let's continue. The AP poll is out. Some would say this may be the last AP poll that matters because we have the playoff rankings coming out Tuesday. They're generated by Flex Power, and I have them right here. And we just talked about this team, Cincinnati. So it is my duty to inform you they're still ranked. AP has them 25th and Iowa 26th. So Iowa not ranked as Oregon heads in there. Under a touchdown favorite, Oregon is at Iowa, at unranked Iowa. So Cincy's 25, Washington's 24. Tennessee dropped 9 spots to 23, which ironically is where we had Tennessee already in the commissioner's poll. So welcome to the party, my friends at the AP. Late as usual, but welcome to the party. Memphis is 22. Michigan is 21. You know, Purdue was one of our favorite bets yesterday. I was stunned that Michigan was laying 21.5 against Purdue because I thought there were several scenarios where Michigan doesn't score 21, and I think that was actually what they scored. It's like 21-16 or something like that. Michigan's just like quietly winning games. Justice Haynes is going to be out for a little while now. The tailback sustained an injury, so keep an eye on that. Southern Cal's at 20. I want you to keep an eye on some of these teams like USC, Washington, Iowa. I mentioned they're at 26. Just remember that for something I'm going to say in a second. Missouri's at 19. So Missouri's coming off a bye. Remember, Bo Perbula, the quarterback, is out for the year. Here's what's interesting. They let me make sure of this line right quick. They play Texas A&M Saturday at home, and you're thinking, okay, undefeated A&M, Missouri quarterback's done for the year. You know what the number on the game is? It's 5.5. A&M's a 5.5 point favorite, so that's one to keep an eye on as well. Miami's at 18. Miami plummeted. They dropped 8 spots. I don't know, man. That's you could put them lower than that, but you're not supposed to project. But they do have that win over Notre Dame. They've got the win over USF. So they started the season strong. It's just Miami keeps finishing weak. They keep finishing these seasons weak. Utah's up 7 spots, and I agree with that. Like, Utah's playing really good football right now, which begs the question, how are you supposed to handle this? Are you supposed to back weight the resume, which I think's fair if you're an AP voter? If you lost games earlier in the year, like Utah lost to Texas Tech, and Texas Tech was playing their backup quarterback, but Devon Dampier's been banged up a little bit. If he's looking right, if he's playing his best ball, like, how do you weigh that? Committee's going to talk about the same thing on Tuesday night. Georgia Tech dropped 8 spots. They're at 16th. I think teams like this get punished a little bit more. Like, they drop a little bit further, which is fair. I guarantee you if Brigham Young loses Saturday, same thing will happen to them. If you're undefeated and your strength of schedule is weak, but you're undefeated, I think the AP voters are willing to inflate you with the understanding that the ice is very thin. So if you fall, you're going to fall a pretty good ways, because as long as you're undefeated, we're going to honor that. But if you lose and you don't have strength of schedule, you're going to drop pretty precipitously. So Georgia Tech did. I got no problem with that. Vandy's at 15. 2-loss Vandy's still in the top 15. For as long as it took the AP to come around on Vandy in the preseason, I am proud of you guys. We do offer congratulations. We do offer some pats on the back around here. Vandy's still top 15. I think they should be. That's around where we'll probably have them. Louisville's at 14, just sneaking around. All right, Texas is back. Texas is up 7 spots. Number 13, I wrote the words, "There they are!" exclamation mark in my notes. They're not out of it. It brings me, it doesn't bring me any pain or any joy. I just know a lot of you wanted to write Texas off. I didn't even have them ranked last week. I'll have them ranked now. I needed to see them get a win here. They were getting rewarded for, well, partly for their logo, and then they had lost to Ohio State, and they had lost to Florida, and like, where were the impressive wins so far? The Oklahoma win, I'll grant you that. They needed another one. They got one, so they're 13. Virginia is 12, still rolling, 1 loss. Oklahoma's up 7 spots to number 11. And that win against Tennessee surprised me yesterday. I wasn't really prepared for this, but they're up at number 11. I'm going to talk about them a little bit later in the show. Because Oklahoma's still in the playoff picture. Texas is still in the playoff picture. And I think to varying degrees, people had written both of them off. Vanderbilt, you can't write them off yet either. They're all still in it. If any of them win out, they will be in the playoff. Let me put it that way. Notre Dame's at 10. Texas Tech is at 9. And Brigham Young is at 8. Okay, so that is 9 versus 8 this week. That's the matchup we have in Lubbock. How far does the loser of that game drop? Both in the AP and also in the playoff committee's minds. Because again, Texas Tech's already got a loss. So theirs would be their second. And if they, look, this is not supposed to matter, but it does matter. If they lose at home as an over a touchdown favorite, which they are in the odds, they will be like really heavily punished for it. Second law, people will look at it the same way they looked at Miami losing to Louisville. Louisville's a really good team. No one cared. Miami was favored by 12.5. So when they lost at home to a team they were favored by double digits against, they plummet. If Texas Tech has their second loss against a team they're a big favorite against, I think they'll plummet a little bit further than you're comfortable with. If Brigham Young loses, you're losing. And what if they lose a close game? They get blown out, that's different. But they lose a close game in Lubbock, to a top 10 team, how far do they fall? Because on one hand, this is by far the best team they've played so far. Utah's really good too, though. So they do have that quality Utah win. They went on the road and beat Iowa State. They will have lost against the highest rated team they've played so far. How far do they fall? Just keep an eye on that, because that means a lot for how the committee is going to view teams that are like 1 or 2 losses, especially 1 loss from the Big 12 against maybe some at-large teams or teams for at-large spots. Ole Miss is 7. Oregon is 6. Now, with Oregon, I want you to keep this in mind, because a lot of people weren't looking at this a little while ago. So now we've got November into focus a little bit. Oregon's remaining schedule has them playing at number 26, Iowa, number 20 at home, USC, and at number 24, Washington. And no one's really circling those games right now. As far as I can tell, like they go to Iowa this week. They're under a touchdown favorite at Iowa. That could be a dogfight. All of these games could be. So Oregon's got it to do. If they're going to make the playoff, this is not going to be easy at all for them. 5 through 1's the same as it was. Georgia, Bama, A&M, Indiana, Ohio State. By this time next week, when you look at who plays each other, there is a world where 8 or 9 of the top 10 are SEC, Big Ten, and Notre Dame. And again, the reason that matters more so than it did last year was because of the changes in the seeding in the playoff, where you don't automatically get a first-round bye only for conference champs. Now it's just we play the conference title games, and the highest seeds are the ones that get the byes. And it is looking very likely that the top 4 teams are just going to be the Big Ten champ and the SEC champ, and the loser of the Big Ten title game and the loser of the SEC title game. So that's important to note. They're watching us in Montezuma, Georgia, right next to Oglethorpe, for those of you unfamiliar. They're watching us in Spokane, Washington, home of Roquan Smith, Montezuma, Georgia, by the way. Spokane, Washington, and Wimberley, Texas. We appreciate you guys. Look at the Ramen Noodle Express shirt. You know that's our best seller, Jesse, in the Pate State store. PateStateMaterial.com, by the way. New items being added daily, not quite daily. We had a meeting Friday. I have heard the cries for Christmas sweaters. Let me just put it that way. We got some exciting products headed to the Pate State store. But the Ramen Noodle Express shirt is our number 1 seller, which should be, because we won again this past weekend. So buy the shirt with your winnings. I think that's ethical enough. PateStateMaterial.com. I need to update my playoff predictions, if that's okay with you guys. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, didn't you just do this a couple of weeks ago? Yes, but it's unfair to me because some things have changed. So I just want a third chance at playoff predictions. Again, it's my constitutional right. Some people exercise their Fifth Amendment right. I'm exercising my right to repredict the playoff. Okay, tomato, tomato. You live your life, I'll live my life. The playoff rankings, the first edition of them, will be this Tuesday. So before we get there, let me remind you of where I was in the midseason. You're seeing it on your screen. I had Georgia Ole Miss in the first round. I had USF as the G5 team. Yes, I had Nebraska in the playoff because I thought they could go 10-2. That's out the window now with the Dylan Raiola injury. So I've got to replace them. Yes, I had Miami winning the ACC. I am probably replacing them now. Elsewhere, most of these other teams, I think, are still in line to make the playoff. The order probably switches up. And that Alabama-Oregon national title matchup, I swore to you, I'm not coming off that unless I have really, really good reason to come off that. So, my conscience is weighing on me right now. So first off, let's just put it up there. Nebraska's not going to make it anymore. Miami's probably not going to make it anymore. All right, so in the ACC, let me let you know that I had Miami over Georgia Tech. I got to switch that up. I got to switch that up to Louisville over Georgia Tech. Miami and Georgia Tech just fell last weekend or yesterday. It was Miami, Georgia Tech. I'm changing that to Louisville over Georgia Tech. Louisville's in a good spot right now. I think Louisville could win the ACC. If they do, they're going to make the playoff. In the SEC, I've got no reason to change up the prediction. I had Alabama over Texas A&M. I will keep Alabama over Texas A&M. I reserve the right to change that up until kickoff, if the game does indeed happen. In the Big Ten, it's been Ohio State-Indiana collision course for a long time. I still think that. Until further notice, I'll take Ohio State to beat Indiana. Nothing would shock me, but I'll stick with that because that was already my prediction. In the Big 12, got to switch it up a little bit there. Still going to take Texas Tech. I'm going to slide Brigham Young into that game. I will take Texas Tech over BYU. Those teams played this Saturday. I am predicting a rematch in Arlington in the first week in December. So just remember, as we're going through this, I'm about to show you the seedings and I'm about to give you the bracket. But just remember the way this works now. Last year, you were looking and saying, ooh, who's going to win the Big 12? Because that team's going to get a first-round bye. Ooh, who's going to win the ACC? Ooh, can Clemson win? Or can they get a first-round bye? That's not the case this year. The case this year is you get a first-round bye if you're ranked 1, 2, 3, or 4. That's it. After conference title weekend. That's it. Okay, just keep that in mind. So, here's how I have the 1 through 12 seeding playing out right now. Ohio State wins the Big Ten. I got them number 1. Bama wins the SEC. I've got them number 2. And then I've got the teams they beat, number 3 and 4, Indiana and Texas A&M. Right now, I've got Ole Miss. I don't have them losing another game. So I've got them in the 5 spot right now. I got Texas Tech winning the Big 12, and I've got them winning out too. So, I mean, that's a one-loss Big 12 champ. I think they'd have them pretty high. I've got them at 6. I've got Louisville at 7. The ACC champ, I think they'd still have them pretty high. Not a lot of other dominant teams out there. So then we get down to like a Georgia. Maybe a 2-loss Georgia. Maybe a 1-loss Georgia. If it's a 1-loss Georgia, they'd be higher than 8. So I've got them losing one more game. Oregon at 9. I think Oregon's got one more loss coming in there. Just mathematically, the percentages suggest maybe one more loss. We'll see. Notre Dame's still sitting at 10. I inserted Oklahoma at 11. I think the window is opening more and more for a 3-loss SEC team to back into this. Right now, I would project it to be Oklahoma. And we've still got 3 or 4 more weekends to go where the window could open more and more. So I'm going ahead and familiarizing myself with the idea that a 3-loss SEC team could make it in here. There are a couple of teams that can stand to lose 3 games in their resume, still be good enough. So I got Oklahoma for the time being, right there at 11. And USF, even though they just lost a game, I still got them as my G5 team. So a couple of questions before I show you the bracket. How does the committee handle an 11-2 Big 12 runner-up? So think through this with me. Let's say Brigham Young loses this Saturday to Texas Tech, all right? And then they go the rest of the way, and they finish 11-1. They go to their conference title game, and let's say the week of the conference title game, they're ranked 9th. If they lose that conference title game and they finish 11-2, is the committee going to drop them out? Now, you may say, oh, no, because remember, they didn't do it last year. That's 1 year. We don't have an established enough sample size or track record to have understood the trends of what the committee will do. And also, keep in mind, what I'm about to say should not matter. I am fully admitting to you it should not matter, but I'm not on the committee yet. So it may matter that last year, when they put SMU in the playoff, for example, they got beat soundly. Some of you are already yelling. I know it's not supposed to matter. I know that. I know you're going to get blowouts in the first round somewhere, no matter what. I know that. I'm not telling you I agree with it. I'm telling you, let's be mindful that it may be in the back of their mind. Just remember that. So that's the first thing I've got in mind. Secondly, Texas could radically alter this. Right now, I'm not projecting Texas to make the playoff. If they win out, they're 100% in. And if they don't win out, if they go 9-3 and they split the Georgia A&M games, they're going to either have a win in Athens or they're going to have a win against A&M at home. Either way, it's going to be a top 10 win. What is their resume? One of their losses would be Ohio State, number one team in the country, theoretically. They would have lost to Florida on the road. That would be viewed as a bad loss, but that was pre-Napier fired Florida. And they will have either a loss to Georgia or A&M, but a win against Georgia or A&M. That window for the 3-loss SEC team, I'm just interested to see how wide or shut that is. So, what does this bracket look like? Well, here you go. This rearranging of teams would mean Oregon travels to Athens, Georgia for a round 1 game. I got USF headed to Oxford, Mississippi for a round 1 game. Notre Dame plays at Louisville, and Oklahoma plays at Texas Tech. My winners of those games right now. Give me Georgia over Oregon. Give me Ole Miss over USF. Give me Texas Tech over Oklahoma in Lubbock, baby. Ooh. And give me Notre Dame over Louisville. So that gives us the first indication that Ohio State may have a really, really ridiculous draw if this scenario were to play out. But they did last year. Like, they ran the buzzsaw last year as well, so it's not like it's going to bother them. But this is not an easy path for Ohio State. So we got Georgia, Ohio State round 2. We got A&M, Ole Miss round 2. Notice there are 3 SEC teams on that side of the bracket, which is a good guarantee to eliminate some SEC teams. Notre Dame, Alabama is a second-round game, and Indiana, Texas Tech is a second-round game. I got Bama over Notre Dame. I got Indiana over Texas Tech. I got A&M over Ole Miss, Ohio State over Georgia, which gives us a Final Four of Ohio State versus A&M and Alabama versus Indiana. That's DeBoer versus his old team, by the way. That's Cignetti versus his old team, come to think of it. I will take Ohio State and Alabama to advance to the national championship game. My national champ in the preseason was Alabama. I'm not coming off that until I absolutely have to. And so give me Alabama to continue to win the national title. I had to bump Oregon out because I think Oregon needs to be doubted right now. And because they have got a tough road here. They've got a tough road. And it starts this weekend at Iowa. I don't know. With that bracket set up the way it is, Oregon would need to beat Georgia, Ohio State, A&M to get to the title game. I just think it's far more likely Ohio State gets there. So, if you want to bet on that, you can bet on it. You can go to FanDuel right now. I do want to do something. I do this once every few weeks. Like, sometimes I'll just tell you, hey, we got deposit bonuses over there. We got some bonus bets over there. Sometimes we just flat out drop cash into your account like we did last week. But every now and then, I do hit up FanDuel and say, hey, tonight's going to be one of those responsible gaming nights. And they're always cool with it. So that's where I tell you, please be careful when you're doing this stuff. Please don't ever misconstrue what should be done for entertainment with what you need to do to make sure you have enough money in your bank account. Don't ever bet for that. Don't ever be doing that. Don't ever be borrowing money to do this. Don't ever be betting money you can't afford to lose. If you've got even a slight inkling of a question in your mind as to whether you should, don't. Full stop. So that's the first part of that. The second part is, I would strongly encourage you guys, when you look at your account on FanDuel, don't just skim over all the tabs. Look at the tabs. Because right now, there's an RG hub. RG stands for Responsible Gaming. It's on your account page. If you go to the tab that says Deposit Alerts, I strongly encourage you to use those alerts to set your values, set your frequencies. Think about this the same way you think about fraud alert detection on your credit cards, all the alerts you have set, to make sure nothing goes haywire. There's no reason you should not be doing that with your FanDuel account. I know some of you think to yourself, oh, that's only for people who have problems. No, the people who have problems shouldn't be betting, period. It's for everybody. I use it. It's for everybody. It's stupid not to use it. So it's smart. It's very common sense. It's responsible. It's there already. They built the product. All you have to do is use it. And you got that on top of deposit alerts. You've got all kinds of different guardrails you can put on yourself, in other words. Do it. Use it. No questions. Please use those. We did really good yesterday on the Ramen Noodle Express. Honestly, man, we went 7-4. I thought we were going to do better than that. So that's what this weekend is for. As I look at the board to start the week, one game stands out to me. One thing stands out to me, and that is that Clemson is laying points this week against Florida State. And at my core, I don't agree with it. Florida State plus 2.5, I can't believe I'm saying it, is going to be our first best bet of the week. We think the wrong team is favored. Clemson has lost 6 consecutive games against Power 4 opponents in Death Valley. So it's not the toughest place to play right now. And yes, it is a bounce back spot. I don't care. I'll take Florida State plus 2.5. Good solid show tonight. Do me a favor. All right, we want to get like 1 million of them this week. If you're not subscribed, just please subscribe to the channel. But here's the follow-up, because a lot of our viewers are really good at this. Make sure you recruit this week. We got the most trafficked college football show in this space by a pretty wide margin, which lets us do the kind of show we want to do, and I'll eternally be thankful for that. But if you want to continue to get the kind of show you want to get, and encourage, well, we don't have management to encourage anymore because we own the show, but if you want to encourage the space, to reward that sort of thing, subscribing to the channel, that's all you have to do. We don't ever need your money. We don't need $50. We already have $50. So that's an office reference for those of you unfamiliar. But recruit your friends and family members and Meemaw and Peepaw and mom and dad to just subscribe to the channel. And here's what that looks like. Mom, will you subscribe to the channel? Either she says yes, in which case your job is done, or she says no, in which case you wait till she walks to the other room, you take her phone, and you do it. Who knows? We may give out a chalice of supremacy for such behavior. So, appreciate you guys so much. Got through the show, voice intact. Some would even say we got stronger as the show went on. So, breath of relief, sigh of relief. For producer Jesse, for director Bradley, I'm Josh Pate. Take care. We'll be back Tuesday night. Until then, enjoy the start of your week, and God bless.